and whatever I see is smiling at me. Love is who I am.
So hello there, beloved Ascension pioneers, and welcome to this video with me today. We're witnessing just this beautiful, if you can see it, I don't know, sun going down here in our Alps. We have very short time zone now before the sun moves into behind the rocks of the tall mountain peaks. So this is our usual December time, so we have to catch as much sun as we can either way for all of you. So this is beautiful, like a representation of what I'm going to talk about today. Light and dark, the integration of the shadow, and the return back to love. It's an ongoing topic in the self-mastery zone. And just recently I had this epiphany that I could do a few of those Ascension Talks videos about the topics that those of you who are really culminating in your 9-year experience, you're actually you're coming into the terms of everything coming together. So these kind of topics that in a way would be last remnants of what we're in need to surrender to go deeper into the union. So those of you who feel you have unified on all levels, it is about you. And watch for those physical signs and physical shifts and physical reality alterations next year in your number 1 year. So I'm really looking forward to that. Without expectations, but just by this gentle feeling of what already is, what we've already been creating. This is also very much related to the recent unfoldings in the collective, because the power of the human togetherness and the resources that we bring when we step together is united in one voice. That doesn't mean we all have to think the same. It just means that we all have to support the freedom that's here for us, and that goes along with the current unfoldings as well, because sometimes we feel we're powerless and we forget how many of us is here wanting change, and how many of us is doing beautiful workings of light behind the scenes, and there's so much unfolding. But sometimes when we're alone in our surroundings, we may feel defeated, or like there's other forces governing us, just because we feel it's just one of us. So sometimes we have to step into the communities, even if that's just online, for us to see that there's greater workings at hand. For example, this weekend particularly, I felt a very strong shift in energy. That meant that always shows me that we've shifted something. And sometimes people ask me, hey, do you know how many of us is doing this work? How many of us is graduating? How many of us know? Because Spirit always tells me it's not about the numbers. It's about a feeling when we feel this subtle energy shifts. And this is when I'm usually shown how we've done another level, or how we've integrated a new level. Because at the bigger scheme of things, you can tap into the energy and you can feel it. We all can feel it. It's not just me. I'm showing you how to do that yourself as your own master of yourself and the master of working with the new energy. So today's topic, okay, the integration of the shadow, because shadow is something that is still so misunderstood, especially in the New Age communities, because the normal people who are probably still sleeping, or large most of the self is sleeping, they're not aware of this, and they're not putting any weight to this awareness. But in the New Age, when people start awakening to this and first realizing and light and shadow and everything, and I'm all in between, and for me, what most deeply resonates with this topic is the perspective of Buddha, when he's sitting underneath the tree, and all those weird demons and, energies lurking at him come, and he's just confronting them by being present, by being observant, by staying alert at what's happening, putting no weight, no judgment, nothing on it, and these things are just dissolving, because the realization here is that when you are in love, when you are love of the universal force of unity consciousness, things are there. They exist, but they have no reference point. They have nothing to do here with you. So for example, sometimes people perceive them having psychic attacks, or being underneath certain energy threats or whatever. But the thing is that we will have different cycles of that energy returning to us until we will master it completely, because these are if we have certain loopholes, and I always call it these little dark spots in our awareness, this is what for me shadow represents. Is for us to master the whole of the self, and to be able to move into the bubble of unity, which is when you're in the bubble, when you're in the sphere, when you're in the circle, you're neutral. You are simply observing everything from that bubble. And that's why I always say the bubble of our unique love. So when people say, wow, the energies in the collective are so intense, or this is intense, how do I handle this? Well, because when you're approaching it still from the outside of that sphere, of the bubble, you are seeing still that confusion, and you're a part of that mess, and you're a part of that duality. But you to become an active force of unity does not mean now you deplete, you kind of deplete yourself of the awareness of what's happening at large. You're with it, but you can do more work within your bubble, if you know what I mean, because you're not taken through the shadow of other parts that are still not aware of them being even the shadow. So the shadow aspect of the whole is not aware of itself as being the shadow. That's why it somehow always seeks to go towards the light. That's why a lot of the beings of the light are being confronted with shadow aspects, sometimes their own initiations to keep them at bay of what's happening, because we're still in a world of duality here. But we can, even within duality, and actually within it specifically, we can become the greatest masters of unified polarity, which is an integrated thing. So because shadow is not aware of itself, it will always seek to go towards the light. And that's why sometimes people say, well, this is karmic, you have this as a karma, and but not really, because somehow, because the shadow is not aware of itself being the shadow, because it's just a lack of light, something that wasn't yet over lighted with that light of illumination. So it kind of tends to go, it's like an osmosis, it's like a paradox. But today's topic, I really pondered about it because so many of us are still denying the shadow. And when we're confronted with so much coming up to the surface and we don't want to recognize it as our own work, because whatever it is, even if it's something seeking to come into illumination through you, not through you, because no one can ascend through another, but through being in a way acknowledged, have a greater self-realization through the mirror that is you, the light that is you, somehow the work at bay will still be yours. One of the examples I have here for us is, for example, someone is mean to you or someone mistreats you, and someone is very much in duality, but how you respond to them still shows how you can be within unity. And I've talked about this before. When we live in separation because we've fallen into someone else's separation, it even isn't, for example, ours, but we still kind of became a part of it. So this is when we will show whether we still have those remnants of ego that kind of battles. It wants to win or lose. It keeps itself separate always until it becomes an illumined ego, which is merged and unified with the soul. Soul being the chariot. That's what the chariot represents in Tarot. The chariot, the God self, the will of the divine moving us forward. And the thing is that we can't have that. We can't exist within that. And so many people want that, but they're not aware of what they need to do to become a part of that. So it's like everyone now wants to awaken, they want to do work, but a lot of times they miss the simplicity and the guidance that the shadow also brings. It's kind of like Osho says that it's not light and dark, love and light. This is supposed to be written together. Death, birth, that life should be one word. And I really wholeheartedly agree with that, because we keep everything separate. We keep everything in these kind of compartments. And yet, the moment when we unify, we will see that even, for example, if you were once guided through fear and love, it was simultaneous experience. Because, for example, the fear wasn't really that non-acknowledged shadow fear, but sometimes it was the fear, kind of like a part of you that is, has a wisdom in it, tells you, I'm not going to make you go into the same experience because it's not good for you. You've learned from it. And the love part of you still wants to keep things open, not close the doors because of a bad quote-unquote experience. And in truth, there are no negative experiences. They're just simply experiences, period. And I've talked about this before. The most neutral word that we can ever think of is experience. It has no baggage. But when we ascribe things like bad, negative, or even the positive experience, in truth, they're all one. And I love, we just recently read that from Osho when he says that ego can only exist when there's still a lack of love. So you still not fully unified, and that's okay. I mean, we've all had those bits and pieces when we became a part of us that's human, and we've taken these human bodies because that was our experience and that was supposed to be our mastery. But a lot of you now, and that's why I say you, and you will know because you're feeling that you're having like those last few squeezes and you feel, oh, I'm almost there. And it's not like you're pursuing the journey, you're like catching it, you know, like I tried to catch the sun yesterday because we went for a hike and I wanted to go, and my mom said, it's not going to happen because the more you go, the faster now it descends, the sun. You're not going to catch it. You're just going to, you know, chase the shadow in truth. I'm like, that's what we're doing. And I had this bigger epiphany because we're trying to chase the light. And even sometimes the shadow tries to chase the light. But it's not what we're meant to do here. We're meant to embrace where we are. So we were almost in the shade for the whole day. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I thought it's going to be sunny. I was like, the sun really goes down fast now these days. But it was okay, we were okay with it, and we had a lovely hike, and I had a beautiful energy shift day, and I felt this was the metaphor, and I was meant to see it, because I always live metaphorically. I see everything as a part of the bigger message, you know, that life, existence, nature, I get so much of my guidance through nature, is showing us. So actually what was happening is we saw that you can't chase the light, you have to become the light. So for those of you who you're starting to feel yourself that you didn't kill your ego, you didn't deny it, you worked with it. You confronted every aspect that it had to show you. You're now feeling like, it's almost like even those last bits and pulls that his ego is trying to sometimes, you know, achieve. It's like a stubborn little child, like a little inner rebel, right? And you're seeing, it's not really what's about. And you're laughing at it. You can laugh it off, you can dance it off, you can whatever you're doing. And you're seeing, there's just, what this is about is me becoming more love, an integrated aspect of human, divine lover of life. So I love that ego only exists until we're still not fully in love, living in love. And that's my main message today, because there's a lot of people running from that. They're running from themselves. They're not even wanting to confront themselves, especially in relationships. It can be difficult because you're going to see aspects of yourself that sometimes are like, ooh, man, I didn't know I cannot communicate my feelings. I didn't know I get so stubborn. I didn't know I can act so immaturely. I didn't know I can do that. And it's okay, because we need to see those immaturities. That's how we become mature, by recognizing them. And that's working with the shadow in integration. And it's not about denying and saying, you know, I'm better than this, I'm of the light, but then you actually go away. You're not confronting it. Because those of you who've been doing the work of confronting every bits and pieces of this, you're actually becoming these newborn masters now. And I'm speaking directly to everyone in my videos, but specifically in this video to those of you who feel you're at this last tinges and surges of this energy. And one of the examples could be like someone, oh, I didn't finish, sorry. I was going to different streams, but it's still all one conversation. So actually someone was like this to you, and you can still bypass the ego. Well, ego no longer exists when you have enough love to go beyond it, and you can still talk to the person, or you can still write to that person, you can still express to that person from your own perspective, nothing, without any dramas, without any storylines, just you expressing even more love. Like, for example, someone has been mean to you, or someone still living in the third dimensional, you know, matrix, and having their falls and ups and downs, but you somehow manage to always see them within the light, and even tell them that they're the light, and, you know, kind of encourage them and tell them how good they are, how great they are, address their majestic presence even when they're not fully living it. I'm not saying like speak it or express it in a way that you just blow fire to their ego. It makes them feel even more confident in a cocky way, in a negative way, which is not really negative, but it's not our highest potential. That's how I'm going to say it. You have to address the themes that are real, not the deceptions and illusions, and you know that, because our true union is always that the essence of every relationship, first with ourselves and then with others, has to be, the foundation has to be the truth. But first we have to realize the truth ourselves, otherwise we're running from it. Because some parts are hard to take, but the truth, I keep you this promise, which I see within myself, that it's actually not difficult. The ego persists, and that's why it feels difficult, because of this persistence, but it's not really difficult. So if you're having inner struggles or battles or clashes of wills, and sometimes people can get really stubborn as well. Everything exists in this human spectrum of emotion and relating to the human. But when we go beyond, when we come from the light human, the illumined human, we can go beyond anything. So we go beyond this, what ego tells you, well, but I'll be rejected, so I won't say this because that person is treating me like this. I'll be the same. That kind of thing, it is so funny when we're like that. It truly is. But one other thing I want to say, because the moment I started thinking about this topic was that I got this letter from someone once this person had a session with me, and I got this letter, which actually was a confirmation, because the day before I wanted to do a video on this topic of the shadow work, because we always talk about the shadow work, but we still address positive, negative to it. But it's not about positive, negative. The shadow work is seeing when we're not fully living our divinity within love. That's all it is. It's so simple. So we have to see it. I won't say everything, just what's important, what I feel is in resonance with the topic of this video. This person wrote to me that they don't follow me anymore. They had to really express that they don't follow me anymore because now they found a true living God. And somehow between the lines, the energy that I felt was like, it's kind of like, it felt like the person couldn't find healing through me and through the session, the way that I do my work. So now they had to tell me, the work was useless. So now they're just finding the real God, and they didn't want to be a part of what I do. And it felt so weird, because why, first of all, do we need to be so condescending in that way? Why, if we really find the living God, which is, it lives through us, it's not the finding God that is, but becoming that God, becoming divine in our every way. That means we're graceful, we're peaceful, we're bringing love, we're appreciating people, we're respectful, we're not condescending. We're not just throwing our ego back at people just because we think, okay, you didn't work for my healing, so you're obviously wrong. You obviously don't have the answers. And that is it's so separate. It still feeds the separation. And I'm feeling, why would someone who's saying they found a living God, because that means you live it. That's what for me means living God. You find it within yourself. It's not somewhere up there. Oh, I find this source and this, I'm finally healing this way now. Perhaps what this simply means is there's another pathway you're choosing, and that's okay. We don't have to say to another, your path is wrong, I'm not following you anymore. That's so childish. It is so immature. You simply go your own way, period. In the heart of all and all humanity, we're already connected. To see, these are the parts that we can't see as the shadow. And what Spirit showed me is that sometimes, especially because I carry the white flame, I work within the white flame of unity and freedom and total self-mastery, which is all responsibility falls back to you. There is even no other God that will save you, or you find. It's the only living God is your I amness, because it is already a part of the God that is all. It's the source of infinite eternal love. And so sometimes it's too hard for people to see all that they have to work through, so they would rather go up there somewhere. And sometimes it's even an illusory God. I'm not saying each person and situation will be different, but a lot of times what Spirit showed me is because it's so hard for some people to accept everything as it is, because that means immense self-responsibility, no one to blame, no victimhood, all work falls back to you. That's real mastery. And sometimes people are not ready for that, and they would rather go seek something else, and that's okay. But why being condescending about it? You see, that's the shadow aspect we're not seeing. And that was a perfect example, the letter that I got, because it showed me how much people still don't know that if they believe in this God and they say, I finally realized God, but they're still treating humans, which we're all part of that God, and animals and nature, but we're still treating each other like crap and condescending and mean and sometimes even evil. I'm sorry, it is how it is. And then we're saying, I found the living God. Truly, did you? Did you really? Because you're not acting like it. And for me, living God only means you're living it. You are God realized through you. You're holy. You're a God person, which means you're a person who is, you're not just a person anymore. You become, like Osho says, a divine person, a divine being. You're living your divinity. So why do we need to reference everything as good and bad, false for me? That wasn't real experience. It wasn't real for me. It was false. You don't have the answers for me. Well, just because a certain pathway was not successful, if you've chosen it through someone else and you couldn't do the healing work, it's not about that person. So if someone, for example, would be not satisfied with my messages or the work they did with me, which happens very rarely for me, honestly, basically every feedback I got was positive, and initially even that person gave me a positive feedback, but then all of a sudden they had a change in heart, and that's okay. I mean, we're all living as free beings, but what I'm saying is, why do we need to say to others, oh, you know, you did nothing for me, or you know, this happens? Because that just still means there's shadow within us, and we're still an ego, and our ego always references things as good for me, bad for me, positive, negative, false, true. You know, it's the only truth is that love, and if you can act within that love and treat others with that kind of loving respect and graceful being, that you didn't realize the living God. I'm sorry, you still have work to do. You still have so much of that true God spark. I don't even call it God, I call it the source of all, which is pure love. I call it unity consciousness. That's how I call it. That's for me. So yesterday I got the white Brotherhood card, and after I got the card today, I realized I heard about the new unfoldings, you know, within those things happening in USA and with the water, and it was also positive. And I felt, you see, that's what happens when people step together in their humanness, in their humanity, in believing and trusting. That's what happens. Good things happen. Progress happens. Evolution happens. When we're being condescending and putting others down and telling them off, that doesn't happen. So your work begins with you. You are that God living, realized. There is no other God. Otherwise, you perhaps believe in God, which many people do. You know, you can believe in fairies, you can believe in the sky, you can believe in the stars, you can believe in anything. But that doesn't change the fact that you becoming the Buddhas, the Krishnas, the Christs of the world, we are those beings now becoming that. Then you're still on the pathway. And you have to realize how you're treating others. Every single communication, every single response you're making is either showing how you live that divinity or not. And that's what I'm talking about in this video. The shadow address needs to come through our humanity as well. So that when the divinity becomes humanity, there is no more separation. There is no more difference. I believe in my God so much. You know how many people do that? And they're fighting these holy wars for God. I mean, God does not need anyone to fight. Love is love. They're fighting it for themselves. They're fighting it for their beliefs, to finally make sense to them. And truly, that's not how you make sense of things, but that's what they believe, so that's why they do it. We only do things when we still believe in them. We stop doing something if we no longer believe in that. So you see, every path is free, it's chosen, it's sovereign. But don't blame others, because you did not feel success coming through that. You did not feel that was a source of your healing. Perhaps it was a stepping stone. Perhaps it was a messenger. Perhaps you're not at that level yet when you can evolve to true mastery. And that's okay. It's not for you. But don't be condescending to others. Don't treat people like that. Because even things that you perceive were negative unfoldings for you, I always do like this. I call it quote unquote because that's what it is. In truth, it's neutral. So even those things had profound messages for you. They had, you know, sometimes even better messengers of true evolution than things that you perceive only as light. And I want to say now what I was shown, and after I had this message to do this video, I got the card from Rumi's oracle, which was called Arise. And it spoke about many of us who were so deeply in the shadow now for a while. Now it's time to rise up again. And I felt the shift this weekend, because there was so much happening, not just for us in the world, but you need such bravery and courage to not disassociate from that, to come in it. And there's only great ones who are capable of descending so fully into that dark, which is the shadow, which wasn't yet fully realizing its potential and what it is, because in truth it's all love. It's an aspect that for God it's love. Shadow does not even know it's shadow. That's why people sometimes can't see it, because that part of them does not know. So they have to develop the light self far enough so that that can be over-lighted again. But it does not happen that way, like I said, through blaming, judging, you know, being condescending, being righteous, in a way, self-righteous. So when we see everything as a part of that integral whole, a part of our healing, that everything is for healing, everything is for a benefit, everything is for evolution, everything is for our self-mastery, that's when we get unity. Otherwise, it's just perception of unity. Can be belief about unity, can be belief in God, but only true living God, only true self-realization is actual application. Knowledge becoming wisdom through love. Otherwise you can't. There's no wisdom without love. Truly no. So some of you who are you're feeling those last pushes and streams, sometimes you will have to, or you'll be guided to make a communication with someone, even if perhaps someone who's done you wrong. But by you doing that, you're stepping through that shadow, you're going in it. You think, just because some people say, oh, that's too negative for you, don't go there, and you're like, heck, I'm going there. You know, that kind of thing. You're like, it's like if you watch Lord of the Rings, you know, they also have to go in the darkest of the things, but then they transform it and they unify, and there's a fellowship forming, and there's brotherhood, sisterhood. I mean, it's one of my favorite movies because of the message that it brings. And when they step together, even different castes, you know, different types of beings, but they do it. And they all have to, during the course of the process, drop their defenses. They have to drop their egos aside for them to have a unified result, which they all want. But they're all seeing it from their own perspective. I want it this way. I want it that way. Blah, blah, blah. You know, it's like your ego within you sometimes is like that. It's showing you all these different perspectives. And you're like, you know what? All of them are actually unified. And the moment you realize that, you are already realized. You're self-realized. You just have to allow it to play out in your physical life. So let me get back to the what I was saying. If you have to, because have to means it's not an obligation, but somehow your guidance is telling you, do it, do it, do it. That's what I mean when I say you have to. Have to make amends. You have to make some sort of something, but don't always think it's going to be about the other and how they respond. Sometimes they won't even respond because they are where they are. But it's about you showing up that your mastery is illuminated enough that you have the guts, you have the courage, you descended as deep as you could, and you're rising through it again. You go to the shadow, you rise it up. That's how alchemists do work. We drop in the densest of the form, rise it up. That's how we do it. And sometimes I call this shifting the shit. I know, but it's not just all lovey-dovey, love, light. It's what we have to do because we're making the unaware aware of itself as it is love. So what I'm saying is, do that if you're guided, if you're somehow in your heart, you're called, because you're freeing yourself. And by freeing up this cloggy space of, I'm not doing it because they're not doing it and this is not done, and all these reasons. Forget the reasons, they're mental energy. Do it because you're greater than anything that you perceive to be a certain way. Do it because you're greater than anything when you're in love. Love makes greatness. Love is greatness. The greatness is you are love. Don't forget that. And when I say that, I mean it in the humblest possible way, because I had to do these things myself too. I told you this, that I got this guidance years ago, that I am a master soul, but I have to also become a master of earth. It's my school just as well. I'm not sitting on some illusory throne up there in the mountaintop, just looking at the sun all day. I have to do the actual physical work. And sometimes people come, and sometimes very low frequencies come, and it will be about how I handle it, and that means how I handle myself within it, during that, approaching me. Again, the Buddha concept, right? Sitting underneath the tree. You don't have to do anything physical to do it. It's the inner transformation you're doing. It's the inner addressing of that which still remains and wants to remain in the shadow, but you're like, you could be, but why should you be? Because I'm love, and I remember that. I'm a warrior of light. So, peaceful warrior, I mean. You're not fighting for it, you're simply making it aware of itself, what it is in truth. So when you're making those conscious contributions, communications, heart openings, you're in the first place doing it for you. You're freeing yourself up, you're showing yourself that you are beyond the ego that tells you, no, because this, and you're showing yourself and the world that whatever it is, you're love. You're acting with love, you're responding with love, even if others don't get it back. We say, oh, because it's unrequited, or unrequited, I don't know what it's called. Truly, I don't. But you feel it in your heart, you're doing the right thing, because each time, whatever it is, within every separation, you still choose unity. That's what makes you the master of the new. That was my topic for today. I hope you liked it. Well, it is what it is, because Spirit is showing me those of you who are in this last bits and pieces. It's like, oh, you're almost feeling like, oh, it's there, but it's not something you need to chase. Again, that's why I showed you the metaphor, trying to chase the sun. We realize that I have to. It's within me. I'm fine. You know? And then you would doubt yourself. Like, I would doubt myself in that moment. Why did I go hiking here if there was no sun? Doubt. No. It was perfect. Even if it was just for that realization, even if it was just for the coming into your own light, it was perfect. And when you trust it, you trust yourself, you trust others, you trust all life. So you don't have to be condescending towards life or others, or you don't have to become a cynical person. You don't have to tell others off. That's when you know you're truly living love. And that will be your signpost that you are. That you have embraced enough shadow that now you can, within any shadow that still is and lurking in this world, you are living as love embodied. That's it. This is my main message for December anyway, because it's not just that it's a holiday month. It's supposed to be a month of love because it's a 12. We need to reverse ourselves to see the bigger picture. We're doing those last bits and pieces before we can move into a new beginnings and one frequency again. So I also have a challenge for this month. I was really somehow by spirit strongly nudged to start dancing more, also just for myself, and develop and do different music, different styles, and and then I had this dancing moment and I had this realization that it's not just for me. Spirit said, you're gonna dance it off. I'm like, what am I dancing off? It's like, well, this is the energy. That's how we're shifting now, through joy. So if a lot of you kind of in it, if you want to be a part of this challenge, which is, and the funny thing is, I've noticed this other girl, someone I know on Instagram, and I see her posting something about dancing challenge. I'm like, wait a minute. It's funny how some of us are receiving this guidance simultaneously. And a lot of you, perhaps you've received it yourself already. So this is just one invitation that I can share. But it's about dancing for joy, dancing for our new year. If we keep enough energy in celebration mode, that's what I was shown, we can shift so much. So as much as a lot of people right now in the world are experiencing tremendous pain and suffering, it's not selfish for you to celebrate, because you're not doing it just for you. You're doing it for the rising of the frequency, so that eventually those who are still here experiencing the pain can be lifted off if they so choose. But there will be more of that created through us, because it's all us. It's been about us. We're the ones who've set up this experiment, and we're seeing ourselves through it on the other side. Who else? It's us. It's always been us, no one else. So I was shown that if enough of us does that within our shared sacred space, we can hold enough light. And I've been seeing that this is working. So it's not just about, oh, please, oh, praying, oh, sometimes that's negative as well, because you're believing in something that has to be because it's not already. You have to already see it like it's this. So celebrate your freedom, celebrate you rising above any sense of ego, celebrate others who are stepping into joy, celebrate the freedom of everything, even that freedom of the water that recently has been, it's been a collective thing. It hasn't just been about there and loco. It's been about us choosing our freedom and saying, we want this. It's our birthright. Everything from nature is ours. Don't take it away from us, because it already is ours. It's about bigger things. It's bigger imprints, collective imprints that maybe are perhaps playing out different scenarios, different regions of the world, but they're all one thing. They're all showing us to not fight, but celebrate what is already ours and show it. Also through joy. So I know some of the souls have been choosing to go through these turbulent times, but we're in it too. If not perhaps physically there with them, we feel the turbulence within us. All those of us who are sensitive, all those of you who are light workers or starseed, whatever, I don't have a name for it, but the masters do that by honoring that which is truth and the joy and the love, and we keep that space open and we keep it rising. So I was shown and I was given the words today, the future is bright, don't give up, dance it away, dance it off. And it's like, my invitation for all of you is, if you have any way of participating as many days or you can, even if it's just one dance a day or one dance a week even, doesn't matter. I want to keep it at least half hour. I don't know if daily, because my dances are pretty exhaustive. I can dance like a lot. And I'm gonna see, but my mission, the challenge here is to dance as much as I can in November, to keep it flowing, to keep that in joy and that sacred feminine. And recently I've watched this video about sacred devotional dancing and the feminine frequency and how important it is. So it's time. If you have in any way informed resonance with this, please keep it to your heart. Celebrate this month. And I'm not saying go out, party, drink, all those things. No, celebrate on a higher frequency, because these are vibratory patterns you're emanating with that and through that, and you're becoming the living God. That's what I've been talking about during this whole video. You're living it. You're not just believing in it, but you're becoming that essence. You're becoming loving, lovable, and in the end, the more you do that, you become love. The essence of love is all you become in the end, because in the end, it's all we are. So that's my challenge. If you in any way are guided to also through these last inklings of your own inner rebirth and transformation during this last month of the last 9-year cycle, wanting to go deeper into your mastery, you can either take my courses or still have a session with me before the holiday season. If you've somehow been contemplating on that, it has to be before the holiday, because then I'm gonna have some time off, as we're probably all going to be guided in the same direction, and then the only option will be again in the new year that awaits. So take it to your heart. Hurry up if that's your calling before the holiday. I love you all so very much with love, wisdom, and power, but devotion to that which is truth. I love you so much. Let's be loved together. Have a beautiful week. Bye-bye.